Today on the Flip Story, we're exploring the distance between wanting to disappear and needing to be heard. My guest is Baumann. She's a speaker and a communication coach who helps leaders use humor to find the signal in the noise. We're going to talk about the flip from running away from anxiety to running towards the microphone and how a native introvert developed a voice that can no longer be ignored. Let's get into it. B, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
Oh, my pleasure. So you're dialing in from Germany, if I have that right.
Yes, I've been here for 20 years now, and I live in a little village. I do stand-up comedy, and I call it Strudelbach.
You
It's
do
just
German language or English language comedy?
in English.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, I still people say, 20 years and you do not speak fluent German? No, I met my husband saying, "Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch," and I've been saying that for 20 years.
Which, forgive me, means what?
I speak a little German.
Okay, then. You speak more German than I do, so we're baselining here. So we're going to get into that in a couple minutes, but just to kind of bring the audience up to speed, what are you up to now? What's your now look like?
My now is going to a place called Garmisch at this end of this month for AWAG, which is Americans Working Abroad. And it's military and professionals from the US who gather for this annual conference. And I'm going to speak to leaders about what they can learn from stand-up comedians.
Huh, that's unbelievable. That is absolutely amazing. So 20
Yeah.
years in Germany. Pre-Germany, I know we traded some notes. You're from Cambridge, Mass, so my backyard.
hmm hmm
Um, so walk us through this. So you're an introvert as a little kid, I'm gathering.
Yeah, well, my story is actually sort of a fairy tale. What happened was I was in foster care. I was raised in foster care since birth to the time I was 12. And at 12, around 12 and a half ish, my real mother came back and got me. And I had been living in a protective church based environment for the first 12 years. And when my mother came and got me, I found out I had 5 brothers and 2 older sisters. I'm the baby of my family, and that I actually am not middle class, but I'm actually have more of a struggle to live. And that was the beginning of the rupture in my persona
Hmm.
because I had believed that, my life was something that was untrue, and my mother, was studying. She went to school for psychology. She was a brilliant woman. She was just, complicated like we all are,
Right.
and yeah, and so we, had a rupture when I was about 15, and I went into the social system and was hospitalized for depression and became an emancipated minor at 16 and started I went to Job Corps in Minnesota, which is where young people could go to get
Right.
skills and training. So I did that, and then I went to work in New York and met my first husband. So all of this time, I'm just a survivor,
Right.
and I'm gritty. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and I'm just doing it. And then
So B,
I
forgive me for
Mhm.
asking here. You used an interesting word. You took me in a very different direction. You said fairy tale. Doesn't sound like a fairy tale to me. That's a total glass half full kind of human. It was an
Yeah, yeah.
observation. Was that a purposeful word, or was that just kind of how you see the universe?
That is how I see the universe, and
Yeah.
in all fairy tales, the heroine has to suffer first, or that's what I've always taken from my own story, and we're allowed to, you know, shape our stories as we see fit once we take command of them. And when my mother came, she actually introduced me to fairy tales, which was something new because I had been based in the Bible. Like,
Mhm.
besides school, I had been based in the Bible. And so that was my first um entree into fiction and into this fantasy and magical world. And I think I held on to it. I grabbed hold of the idea
Yeah.
of a fairy tale of magic, and that's sort of what what kept me going, kept me bright, as you said, kept me looking at the bright side.
Right. Hopping around a little. Is the Bible a fairy tale, or are they two separate things in your mind as an adult?
Well, I just feel the Bible answers
It's okay
questions.
either way, by the way. I'm not looking to anyway, I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
no, yeah, no, my own perspective, like you said, this is only my own perspective. The
Right.
Bible answers questions, where as once you leave the Bible, you have to start asking questions. And that was the difference for me. Like, I the Bible was sort of like the answer, and then once I was
Mm,
out of that environment and I was open to read uh, all sorts of different types of
right.
books like Maya Angelou and, even Daniel Steele. I mean, I was able to read anything I wanted and to look at anything so then it was like having my mouth up to a fire hose and the world came in and it was like, okay, yeah, and that is it was a lot of things. Like I said, it was very complicated.
So I'm gathering now you're in your 20s, you meet your first husband. Is comedy part of your life at this point or not yet?
Not yet,
Yeah,
no. I when I met my first husband, it was about settling down because I am a product of, like, the '60s, '70s, and
right,
I believed that I had to settle down. Like, that was my,
right.
my plan for life is that you settle down, you have children, you have a house. And so I was trying to follow that agenda. And my first husband was in the military, and we actually came to Germany with our kids.
Mhm,
And and that, of course, opened my mind as well, but then we fell apart because, we didn't have a strong enough foundation, but we were good enough together to co-raise our children. I went to New Mexico to finish my bachelor's in English, and he moved back to Rhode Island,
'kay.
with the support of his family to help him raise the kids while I finished, my degree, and we divorced, and I had planned to, like, move to Mexico and become a writer, but I wasn't brave enough. I wasn't brave.
Right.
I got off the bus at, Las Cruces and went to New Mexico State, and then when I finished, I, went to Boston to be closer to my children and to help raise them, and that's where I met my husband, my current husband, who is German. He came into my little neighborhood of Dorchester. There's a very famous jazz club called Wally's. You might know it. You're
Uh-huh.
so,
I don't, but yeah.
Wally's. Yeah,
Okay.
and, Wally's is in the guidebook, so everybody goes through Wally's, and it just happened to be my neighborhood bar, jazz
Yeah.
bar. So I was out, and like I said, the first thing I said when I met him was, "Oh, you're German." I speak a
You've
little
been to
German.
Germany, yeah, at that point, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, and so long story short, we hit it off and then moved in together. He helped me at that time, my kids were, about, 11 and 12, around that age. And so he helped me co-parent with weekends and we stayed in Cambridge until we got the kids in college because his parents was elderly and his mother had a terminal illness. And
Right.
so we decided to come to Germany, to move to Germany. We got both kids in college, and that's when I came. And I I to say that this was a smooth point, this was not a smooth area, and that in Cambridge was sorta the beginning of the rupture in my reality where I started having anxiety disorder, where I started panicking and dissociating, and I was just trying to, like, make it through, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I was falling apart, and he was traveling, and so it was like everything all at once, and honestly, I was so happy to have my partner who was my strength, but I also felt like, "Okay, now I can retire. Now I can just hide from life and just, take care of the geraniums on my windowsill kind of
Uh-huh.
thing. Because I life was scary. I didn't want
Right.
to be in it. My kids were fine, and I was struggling, mentally, and I had help. I had a
Right.
therapist, and I had my husband, but by the time we moved to Germany in 2005, I was like, "I'm done." Just I will stay in the house,
Right.
and then it was like, and this is Germany, so I won't really have to talk to people, I can just and then I love writing, so I thought I can just, be a writer in my own home and,
Right. In your
you
own
know,
head. Yeah.
in my own head, yeah, and I could just sort of disappear, and my partner, bless his heart, was like, "No, you need to get a job," and so I became a business English trainer, and he wa "You should meet some people," and so
So can
there
we
was
wait,
an
just real quick, let's
organization.
stay right there.
Okay.
So now you you get a job as a English business trainer. You're training Germans on English. Is that basically what's happening?
Yes.
Anxiety still, or is this the dawn of like kind of positivity for you? Where are you in this? Because I know where we're going, which is fantastic. But where does B live in this moment now? You got obviously a wonderful partner. You're in Germany, which is pretty far from Cambridge if I look at the map.
Mhm.
You're in a small town, and it sounds like your partner's one or both of their parents are having some real issues, and that stuff is that alone is intense. I mean, I can say that I recently went through some of that, and it's not easy on any couple, any individual. So what's going on here? You're like, all right, I'm gonna go and just do this, or you're kind of excited. Where are you?
Honestly, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go do this." I was happy to get out of the house, and
Hmm.
I was trying to live normally. I had medication, I had a nice home life. My, in-laws and family, extended family were nice enough to me.
Yeah.
So I was thriving, but I still had this basis of anxiety. I still had this base level of of wanting to hide and of not wanting to be seen. And my husband, like I said, pushed, "Why don't you try work?" And so I tried work, and I was happy to have a job and to get out. And English has always been my passion. So I loved teaching English. And then he mentioned Toastmasters and
Okay.
which is an English organization for speakers. And I thought, okay, I'll go and drink coffee and listen to English, and I just kinda saw it as another way to just sort of get by,
Mm,
and then when I got in Toastmasters and started giving speeches and actually joined Toastmasters and went through their program, which is an amazing program, and I found that's where I started speaking, and I found my voice, and the first thing I found is that I was very nervous. It was being seen, which is something that I had an issue with, but I was pushing past it. And Toastmasters at that time had comedy courses, not comedy courses, but a comedy competition that you could join for the best speaker, humorous speaker.
Right.
And I won that.
What'd you
And
talk about?
hmm?
What did you talk about when you won that? What was the
Oh
narrative
my
there?
gosh. Yeah, the first time I spoke, what was that about?
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I think it was about, this cultural, um, disconnect. Like, my father-in-law one time was saying bye to us, and I thought he wanted a high five. So
Right.
that's sort of what the speech was about, was this cultural disconnect. And yeah, and so I won. I won that speech contest, and I went on to win area contests. And I found when I was doing humorous speeches that it took me 38 seconds. 38 seconds where I had to regulate my nervous system, but then I felt fine. Then I was grounded and I could speak. And so then I was like, huh.
Right.
And I was teaching English for one of the big companies, but they had a cookie cutter, they still have a cookie cutter type program. And I wanted to be more creative. I wanted to help people actually speak with more confidence, and not to have this problem with grammar or being perfect, but to allow themselves to just be human in themselves. And that communication can take place at that level. You don't need to be perfect for communication to take place.
Right.
And that's when I started trying to use humor. I started a blog and tried to use laughter. And humor is a little bit different from comedy, although they both contain one another,
Yeah.
in that humor is more of the basis of regulation. So if you take humor back to its original definition, it was the humors, and it was about balancing yourself internally. And then it recently became about having wit and being this person with humor. And then, so then if you can be a person with humor, then you could also be a person who had no humor. And that's what it has turned into. But at that time, once I understood this idea that humor is a regulating tool, then that for me was like an aha. Comedy is about performance.
Right.
And I love performance, and I do that as well. But I try to teach people how to use humor as a way to regulate themselves.
I think that's fascinating. So, how long did it take you to figure that out? Because that doesn't seem intuitive to me. I spent a lot of time in comedy, not necessarily in front of a camera, but around it. I've thought about humor, maybe not the way you just described it. I think that's really interesting. So, how did you land on this?
Yeah, how did I land on it? It's just like, Dada art, where you just throw things together and you come up with this idea. Because like I said, I have an anxiety disorder. So I I balanced that, and then I found I was able to regulate with being humorous. And I love speaking in front of people. I love speaking to people. And so I wanted to do that. I wanted to speak to people, and I
Mm,
wanted to share my story, because I felt, I know there's a lot of women, if not people like me, who were raised without role models, who didn't get that um, perfect start. And so now maybe thinking it's over for me. And I'm like, no, it's not over for you. It's not over for any of us. You can always find your voice and speak for yourself. So I wanted to share that message. when I left Toastmasters after winning these humorous contests, I thought, how can I use my voice? And I thought, I can become a stand up comedian. So that puts me in front of people laughing. And I enjoy doing that. So I became a stand up comedian in English speaking bars in Germany. And so I travel around Germany, go to the UK to clubs doing stand-up comedy, and I really enjoy it. I still do it, and
Yeah.
I wanted to help others, and so it just was like that atom smashing thing where you put it together, and for me, I thought comedians can teach regular people, comedians can teach anyone how to be a better communicator, because comedians have to get on stage and in under 30 seconds have an audience, be
Right.
able to communicate, be able to share ideas to get people on their side and help people regulate when they feel like, are you real, are you,
Right.
and so to get that confidence and that trust from the audience. So I felt like there's a lot we can learn from stand-up comedians. And so I want to teach people that.
And if I heard you earlier, you had mentioned everyone has humor. So
And
maybe go ahead.
no, true. We all have humor. It's been proven that even babies, even people who are born unable to see and hear, still simultaneously find some reason for laughter. And so it is an innate trait in human beings. And what I feel sometimes is happening is we're moving further and further, especially in the West, towards this idea of this is inappropriate.
Right.
And we had this back in the like 1600s where it was no laughter. You do not laugh. Polite people do not laugh.
Right.
Intelligent people do not laugh. But I feel like we cannot lose this regulation tool. We cannot lose this communication tool because we actually need it more than ever now. You know, the Society of Human Resources did a study last year that said there's something like over 300 million acts of incivility a day.
Oh, jeez. That's
And
horrible.
yeah, exactly.
Should not
And
be laughing about that. I'm sorry.
it's okay. We That's another thing we can laugh at about anything, and that's why laughter is so powerful. And we need to. We need to be laughing because it is a way to regulate. It's a way to say, to look at something from a different perspective. It's a way to join with someone and to build rapport. So it's very strong what laughter can do. It's a very powerful communication tool. And we shouldn't try to relegate it to, it's this small thing that only low people do or people do to put down others. No, it's not. Just like any tool, it can be used as a weapon,
Right.
but it is a powerful positive tool as well.
Well, I think, mm, my observation kind of related to that. People seem to be less happy. They seem to be less receptive to just the concept of joy, and they seem to laugh less. I mean, I kind of see that. That's an unfortunate reality of today, and I think that's interesting that you kind of tap into humor as this basis of regulation concept of, yeah, you need it. It's not that you have it and you can lose it, but you actually fundamentally need it. That's fascinating.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I did a TED talk in 2025 last year
Yeah.
called Embracing Humor. And it was about this one aspect of language is putting people down, like, the N word, just any word that puts people down. But we have to move past this somehow because we can't keep holding on to these old containers of words that are tied to a past that we're supposed to have moved past. And
Right.
so, yeah, so I did that talk on exponential communication. Now we have communication coming in from everywhere all the time. And one thing we can use is a sense of humor to help us manage some of this anger that we hear in other people's voices,
Right.
some of this ability for conflict. So like you said, this is not a time where we need to lose a sense of humor. This is a time when we need to lean in to humor.
That makes sense. And I think, just in that exponential communication, one of uh, one of the challenges with humor and with communication in general is there seems to be a reward for getting to the bottom first. And unfortunately, that creates a little bit of a vortex of negativity, maybe more than a little bit. Then you start to add that up and you start to add that up. And then suddenly the whole concept of things like humor and joy get a little bit morphed, not necessarily in positive directions. And, I look at like, I got kids and I look at kind of how does that impact them? Their sense of humor is very different, perhaps just because they're constantly getting bombarded with these other kind of alternative things that maybe humor not as joy, but humor as a click. And
Mhm.
anyway, it's interesting. You know, all right. This is awesome. This is unbelievable. It's kind of fascinating. I don't know if I get to talk about humor with an expert. So sorry. Thank you for allowing me to ask some silly questions.
No,
Um, let's move forward though. So now you have this humor concept, and you obviously you have this aha moment from a business perspective. Is this aha moment eureka, or is this just terror of like, holy crap, I'm gonna now I think I have something that's not just my husband telling me go back to work. It's now like a real thing. And what's going on in your head at this moment?
yeah, it is that moment of, is do people see this, or can I show this to people? Can I bring this message to people? Which is what I want to do, is bring this message to people. And I teach 7-week stand-up communication courses where we use stand-up comedy to learn how to regulate the body, some improv, and they have to finish 5 minutes, create 5 minutes worth of material. So people who are hearing my message are very responsive to it. I have people take my course more than once because they enjoy it, because that is an arena where you can practice being vulnerable, using humor, using your body in different ways, and then take that out into the real world. So
Right.
there is a real benefit that I've found, that scientists and entrepreneurs gravitate towards this, even though some people start out with, oh, I could never do stand up comedy. Like, I couldn't be a comedian. And it's bringing them in and saying, yes, it's about finding your voice and letting go of all of that old messaging that tells you you can't, because confidence to me is about regulation. It's about calming your nervous system, relaxing, and
Right.
then using your voice, because we tend to start sort of tight. So the message as I'm getting it out, people are starting to get it. I'm writing a book now called Unshakable, Finding Your Voice in Your Body, because the body is the first message bringer, and we're starting to lose that as we go into the mind and thinking we can just
Mm.
mentally handle everything. And the body's like, wait, you need us too. We're not a meat sack running around. We, and our body is talking to us. And I read a book called A Thousand Brains, and I like the concept. Um, oh, I can't remember. Oh, anyway, and I love the concept that we have more than one brain
Right.
that is talking to us at any given moment. Our stomach, our sweat glands. I mean, everything is talking to us. And so my message is we have to find a way to hear those messages and then regulate ourselves into our comfort zone, back into our comfort
I
zone.
think that's fascinating. Just the whole what you're talking about, this body regulation through humor. And so I did want to ask you a little bit. It sounds like you've now taken that and made a little bit more of an advanced, I don't want to say scientific theory, but maybe you might. So tell us about Hive. So tell us how you got to Hive now. So it seems like it's an elevation on kind of some of the concepts you were just sharing.
Yes, yes, and it really feels, David, like this message was given through me, because I go by B. My name's Annabelle, but I go by B, and I started thinking my company, which actually I got up and running, at the end of 2024, is B Communication. And I got this idea of the hive as bees communicate, and bees communicate by doing what there's called the wiggle dance.
Yeah.
So bees come up to each other and they're like, shaking, telling you about where the food is, the safety, the space. And so I thought, this is what I want, is bee communication. I want us to be a hive communicating through the body. So Hive actually stands for honest, insightful, valuable engagement. And it's about being able to be honest about what you're trying to communicate and leaning into learning about yourself and your message and becoming that kind of communicator, becoming a hive communicator.
Huh. That's spectacular. Love it.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's B, thank you for all that. That's pretty spectacular. I love the story. I love the journey. I love what you're doing. I love the way you've been able to be very thoughtful around something that a lot of us care about deeply, that being humor. Um, and you've been able to apply it and re-engineer it back into the human body. It's just it's a neat story. Um, One of the things that we do here on the show is we have our recipe book, and we invite all our guests to come and share a recipe that they can single page, just kind of pretty short form, the ingredients, the methodology, the final product that they would like to provide as a leave behind. And so, B, I'd like to invite you to provide your recipe for our book.
Well, my recipe is something that I call Chronosoma. And this is the theory I have of the body in time, movement in the body in time. That is what puts you into the now. And how do you anchor the body? By, grounding your feet, softening your knees, opening your chest, and inhaling. And so there's a very short little routine you can do with yourself when you're feeling a little nervous or out of sorts. It's grounding, you know, um, feel your feet on the floor, soften your knees, open your chest, and exhale longer than you inhale. And inhale and then exhale. And that will put you in your body in the moment. Because if we're thinking about the past, we're usually depressed. And if we're thinking about the future, then we're feeling anxious. But if we can be grounded in the moment.
Huh. That's awesome. All right. There you go. Chronosoma. Did I get that right?
Yeah, chronosoma. It's chrono in time and soma body. Chronosoma.
I love it. Um, I do have a final question for you. I have a question for you. You had alluded to this early in our interview. You had mentioned that you had struggled, you had anxiety around being seen. Do you still feel that today, or is that now you're way past that?
No, I still feel it. I think it's a part of my identity. Yes, it's regulated. So I have tools that I can use around it. One thing I saw that stuck with me, it was a meme on the internet that said, "Why are you trying to fit in when you were born to stand out?" And that is sort of how I think about life now, is that I was put out here to share a message, and if I can do it, and if I can help others with my story, then that is what I'm here for.
Amazing. All right. So, B, how can people find you? Just a final call out here.
Yep, hashtag B Communication, at B Communications on Instagram. You can email me at info@annabellebaumann.com. I would love to hear from everyone. Like I said, have a TED Talk, and if you're interested, please check it out. It's called Embracing Humor.
All right. I'll put all those links in the show notes as well. So, absolutely. Oh, B, this has been awesome. This has been so fun to have you on the show. I just want to say thank you again for coming and for just being so generous and sharing everything. I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience will too. And it's really just been wonderful to just hear your journey. And so for everyone tuning in, we'll see you on the next one. All right. Bye now.